Taemin was only 12 years old when the sky turned dark above his homeworld New Seoul. The boy was playing in the crystal fields with his little sister Nari when huge alien ships blocked out the two suns. The ships were black and scary looking, with strange lights flashing on their sides. His parents Jin-ho and Mi-young were simple farmers who had moved to this peaceful planet to grow food and raise their children. They never thought danger would find them so far from Earth. The crystal fields were Taemin's favorite place to play because they made pretty sounds when the wind blew through them. The alien creatures that came from the ships looked like giant bugs with 6 arms and sharp claws. They made clicking sounds when they talked, and their eyes glowed red in the dim light. These were the Vorthak raiders who traveled from planet to planet stealing people to sell as slaves. Taemin watched in horror as the bug aliens used strange weapons that shot blue light. The light made people fall down and stop moving, but they were still alive. His mother screamed his name as the aliens grabbed her. His father tried to fight, but there were too many of them. The boy grabbed his sister's hand and tried to run toward the hills where they could hide, but the aliens were too fast. One of them pointed the blue light weapon at Taemin and everything went dark. The last thing he saw was Nari crying as another alien picked her up. When Taemin woke up, he was inside a metal cage. The cage was so small he could barely stand up. Around him were many other people from his planet, all crying and scared. An old man named Woo Jin told him they were on a slave ship flying through space. The ship was cold and dark with strange smells everywhere. The aliens gave them very little food and water. Many people got sick, but the aliens did not care. They only wanted to keep the humans alive until they could sell them through a small window. Taemin could see stars moving past very fast. He wondered if he would ever see his home again or find his family. The other prisoners tried to comfort him, but everyone was too scared to talk much. The journey took many days and nights. Taemin learned that humans were new to the galaxy. Most alien races thought humans were just smart animals that could be bought and sold. The old man Woo Jin had heard stories about other human colonies being attacked. During the long trip, Taemin thought about his parents and sister every day. He wondered if they were on the same ship or if they had been taken somewhere else. He made a promise to himself that he would find them, no matter what happened. The aliens came to check on the prisoners every day. They would point at different humans and make clicking sounds like they were deciding how much money each person was worth. Taemin noticed they seemed especially interested in the children. One day, an alien with extra shiny armor came to look at the humans. It made more clicking sounds than the others and seemed to be the boss. It stared at Taemin for a long time with its glowing red eyes. The boy stared back without showing fear, even though he was terrified inside. The alien leader seemed surprised that a human child would look at it so bravely. It made some notes on a strange device and walked away. Taemin did not know it, but this moment would be very important. Later, as the ship traveled through space, Taemin noticed that his shoe felt different. There was something small and hard inside that had not been there before. His father must have put it there when the aliens were attacking. It was probably some kind of tracking device that could send signals. The boy was careful not to let the aliens see him checking his shoe. He hoped that someone on Earth was listening to the signal and would come to save them, but space was very big and Earth seemed very far away. When the ship finally stopped, Taemin could see a huge space station through the window. It was built inside a big rock and had thousands of lights. It looked like a metal city floating in space. This was Krylon Station, where the slave markets were held. The aliens opened the cages and forced all the humans to walk in a line through the ship. They put metal chains on their hands and feet. The chains were heavy and made walking difficult. Taemin tried to stay close to the other people from his planet. They were taken through long metal hallways filled with strange alien creatures. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others looked like walking rocks or flying jellyfish. The boy had never imagined there were so many different kinds of life in the universe. The hallways led to a big room that smelled bad and was full of cages. There were creatures from many different planets all waiting to be sold. Some looked like animals, but their eyes showed they were intelligent beings just like humans. Taemin was put in a cage with several other human children. They were given water and something That might have been food, but tasted terrible. A robot voice spoke in many different alien languages, but also in human language, telling them to be quiet and obey orders. Through the bars of his cage, Taemin could see alien creatures walking around and looking at the prisoners like they were shopping for pets. Some aliens pointed at the humans and made sounds that might have been laughter. The boy realized that to these aliens, humans were nothing special, just another species to be bought and sold. He felt angry that anyone would think they could own another person, but he also felt scared because he was just a child and very far from home. That night, as Taemin tried to sleep on the hard floor of his cage, he could hear other prisoners crying. Some were calling out names of their families. Others were praying to different gods. The sound made him feel even more lonely. But deep inside his shoe, the small tracking device kept sending its signal out into space. The signal was weak, but it was still working. Someone somewhere might be listening and following the trail to find them. Taemin held on to this hope as he finally fell asleep. The next morning, alien guards came to take the humans to another part of the station. They were forced to walk through more metal hallways, while alien creatures stared at them. Some aliens took pictures with strange devices. Others made clicking or buzzing sounds that might have been comments. Taemin and the other humans were taken to a big room with rows of seats going up like a theater. But instead of a stage, there was a platform with bright lights shining on it. This was where the slave auction would happen. The boy could see hundreds of different alien creatures sitting in the seats. Some were huge and covered in fur. Others were small and looked like they were made of metal or crystal. Many had too many eyes or arms or legs to count. A fat blob-like alien rolled onto the platform. It had a device around what might have been its neck that made its voice very loud. This was Grix, the auctioneer who would sell the prisoners to whoever paid the most money. First they brought out some creatures that looked like big cats with blue fur. The aliens in the seats made various sounds and held up glowing devices to show how much they wanted to pay. The cat creatures were sold quickly to a group of rock-like aliens. Then it was time for the humans. Taemin watched as men and women from his planet were brought out one by one. Each person was forced to stand under the bright lights while the auctioneer described them like they were animals. An older man named Hyun-soo was sold to work in the mines on a distant planet. A young woman named Yoonji was bought by an alien that looked like a giant insect to work in its house. Taemin felt sick watching his people being treated this way. When his turn came, 2 alien guards grabbed his arms and pushed him onto the platform. The bright lights hurt his eyes and made it hard to see the crowd, but he could hear them making excited sounds. Many aliens seemed very interested in buying a human child. The auctioneer blob started, talking in its loud mechanical voice. It said that humans were a new species with unusual intelligence and adaptability. It mentioned that human children could be trained to do many different jobs or kept as interesting pets. Taemin stood as straight and tall as he could. He would not show these aliens that he was afraid. Even though his heart was beating very fast, he looked out at the crowd with angry eyes. He was not an animal, and he was not a pet. The bidding started low, but quickly went higher. A creature that looked like a giant spider wanted to buy him for its collection. A floating jellyfish alien thought humans would make good servants. But the prices kept going up. As more aliens joined the bidding, an insect creature named Vextol raised its claw to bid higher. It made clicking sounds that the translator said meant it thought human children were very valuable. A gas creature called Zulmar made a sound like wind blowing to increase its offer. But then a new voice spoke from the back of the room. It was cold and mechanical sounding. The crowd turned to look at a tall crystal creature that sparkled under the lights. This was Lord Kethrak of the Dominion Fleet, one of the most powerful military leaders in the galaxy. Lord Kethrak made an offer that was much higher than anyone else. The other aliens made disappointed sounds, but they knew they could not compete with someone so rich and powerful. The auctioneer blob announced that the human boy was sold. Taemin felt empty inside. As metal chains were put on his arms and legs, he was now the property of an alien creature that saw him as nothing more than an interesting object. The crowd cheered as money changed hands somewhere in computer systems. As he was led off the platform, Taemin looked back at the other humans still waiting to be sold. He wished he could help them, but he was just a child with chains on his hands. There was nothing he could do except hope that someday things would be different. Lord Kethrak approached, him with steps that sounded like glass breaking. The crystal alien looked down at its new purchase with eyes that glowed like blue fire. It made sounds that the translator turned into words about training and usefulness. The boy was taken to a holding area to wait while Lord Kethrak finished his business at the auction. Other alien servants brought him food and water that tasted strange, but was better than what he had eaten on the ship. Through a small window he could see stars and space stations. Lord Kethrak owned a big ship that would take him to wherever the crystal alien lived. He wondered what kind of life waited for him, and if he would ever be free again. But Taemin did not know that far away in space, human ships were following the signal from the device in his shoe. The signal was weak, but it was enough. Captain So-hyun and her crew were getting closer every day. The auction continued with more humans being sold to different alien buyers. Each sale made the aliens richer and the humans more scattered across the galaxy. But it also made the trail easier for the human ships to follow. As night came to the station, Taemin was locked in a small room to wait for morning, when he would leave with his new owner. He lay on a hard bed and thought about his family, wondering where they were and if they were still alive. The tracking device in his shoe kept sending its signal into space like a tiny voice calling for help. Soon that call would be answered in a way that would shake the entire galaxy. But for now, Taemin was alone with only hope to keep him warm. Captain So-hyun stood on the bridge of her ship, the Vengeance, staring at the data screen that showed a weak signal coming from somewhere in the Krylon system. Her heart was beating fast, because this might finally be the lead she had been searching. For 2 years ago, her younger brother Minho had disappeared when slave raiders attacked the mining colony where he worked. Since then, she had been hunting through space looking for any trace of the missing colonists. The Earth Defense Force had given her this mission because she was one of their best captains. The signal was very weak and kept fading in and out, but it matched the type of tracking device that human colonists were supposed to hide on their children in case of emergency. So-hyun had found 3 other signals over the past year, but they had all led to empty space or destroyed ships. This time felt different. The signal was coming from Krylon Station, which intelligence reports said was a major trading hub for many alien species. It was also rumored to have slave markets in its lower levels, though no human had ever seen them. Lieutenant Dongmin, her communications officer, was working hard to boost the signal strength. He was young, but very good with technology, and had volunteered for this mission because his sister had also been taken by slavers. Commander Jin Woo, the ship's tactical officer, was studying star charts and planning approach routes. He was an older man who had fought in the border wars and knew how dangerous it could be to enter alien space without permission. So-hyun made the decision to take her ship closer to Krylon Station, but to stay hidden using their experimental stealth technology. The Vengeance was one of the newest human ships designed specifically for rescue missions in hostile territory. As they got closer, the tracking signal became stronger, and they could tell it was definitely coming from inside the space station. The signal was moving around, which meant whoever was carrying it was still alive and being moved from place to place. The captain ordered her team to start recording everything they could see and hear from the station. They used advanced sensors to pick up communications and security camera feeds. What they discovered made everyone on the ship very angry. The lower levels of Krylon Station were indeed slave markets, where creatures from dozens of different species were being bought and sold like animals or furniture. The humans could see cages, full of intelligent beings waiting to be auctioned off to the highest bidder. But what made them most angry was seeing other humans in those cages. Men, women, and children from various human colonies were being treated like pets or work animals. The alien creatures running the market talked about humans like they were discussing cattle or machines. Through hidden cameras, they watched as human prisoners were brought out and displayed for alien buyers. The auctioneers described human intelligence and adaptability, like they were selling features of a new product, not talking about living people with families and feelings. So-hyun felt sick when she saw a young human boy being sold to a crystal creature. The boy stood brave and defiant, even though he was clearly scared. This reminded her of her own brother and made her more determined than ever to stop this evil trade. The ship's computer systems automatically recorded everything and prepared to send the data back to Earth Command. The evidence was clear that humans were being systematically captured and sold throughout this part of the galaxy. Lieutenant Yu Jin, the intelligence officer, discovered that Krylon Station was just one of many such markets. There were similar facilities on at least 20 other worlds, and the trade had been going on for several years without anyone on Earth knowing about it. The captain realized they had stumbled onto something much bigger than just finding a few missing colonists. This was organized, slavery on a massive scale, and Earth needed to know about it immediately. The data was transmitted back to human space using quantum communication. Within hours, the recordings reached Admiral Jae-sung at Earth Defense Command. The old soldier watched the footage with growing rage as he saw human beings treated like merchandise. He immediately called an emergency meeting of all fleet commanders. The evidence from Krylon Station was shared with every human military unit in space. The recordings of humans being auctioned off spread through the fleet like fire. Many of the soldiers and officers had family members who had gone missing over the past few years. Admiral Jae-sung stood before his senior staff in the main briefing room. The walls showed star maps marking all known slave market locations, while screens displayed the horrible footage from the auction. The room was completely quiet as everyone absorbed what they were seeing. Commander Hee-jin, the admiral's aide, pulled up intelligence, estimates suggesting that thousands of humans had been taken over the years. They were scattered across dozens of alien worlds, serving as slaves, laborers, pets, and worse. The scope of the crime was enormous. The admiral looked around the room at his officers and saw the same anger in their eyes that he felt in his heart. These aliens had made a terrible mistake by thinking humans would accept this treatment. They had no idea what they had unleashed. Plans began forming immediately for rescue, operations, and punitive strikes against the slave markets. But this would not be a small mission. It would require the entire human fleet and careful coordination across many star systems. Captain So-hyun received new orders to continue monitoring Krylon Station and gathering intelligence. Her ship would be part of the first wave of attacks when the time came. She thought about the brave boy she had seen on the auction platform and promised herself he would be rescued. The vengeance remained, hidden near the station, watching and recording as more humans were bought and sold. Each transaction was documented as evidence of crimes against humanity. The aliens had no idea they were being watched. Back on Earth, the government was briefed about the slave trade and immediately authorized military action. The news was kept secret to prevent panic, but preparations began for the largest military operation in human history. Admiral Jae-sung knew this would change everything between humans and aliens. Once they struck back, there would be no hiding from the galactic community. Humanity would announce itself as a force that would not tolerate any threats to its people. The planning took months, but every detail was carefully worked out. Simultaneous attacks on multiple targets, rescue operations for thousands of captives, and a message that would echo across the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. Admiral Jae-sung stood in the secret command center, buried deep beneath the mountains of Earth. The room was filled with holographic displays showing star maps, fleet positions, and intelligence reports from across the galaxy. This would be the largest military operation humanity had ever attempted. For months, human ships had been quietly moving into position near alien worlds that housed slave markets. The movements were carefully disguised as routine patrol missions or trading expeditions. No, one wanted to alert the aliens that something big was being planned. Captain Woo-sung commanded the Stealth Reconnaissance Division. His ships had been mapping alien defenses and identifying weak points in their security systems. Every slave market, every patrol route, every communication relay had been studied and cataloged. The human fleet had grown much larger than most aliens realized. While the galactic community thought Earth was a primitive world with limited space capability, humans had actually been building warships in hidden shipyards for decades. These new ships used technology that aliens had never seen before. Human scientists had learned to combine ideas from many different species, creating weapons and defenses that were completely unexpected. The element of surprise would be crucial. Lieutenant Commander Hyejun led the intelligence division that had spent years infiltrating alien computer networks. Human agents had learned alien languages, studied their military tactics, and identified key leaders in the slave trade. Many of these agents were former slaves who had managed to escape their captors and make their way back to human space. They provided detailed information about security procedures, guard rotations, and the layout of various facilities. Captain Dong-woo commanded the special forces teams that would conduct the actual rescue operations. His soldiers had trained for years in zero-gravity combat, alien environment, survival, and close-quarters battle techniques. Each team member had studied the biology and psychology of different alien species. They knew exactly where to hit each type of creature to disable them quickly and efficiently. The training was intense because there would be no room for mistakes. The human fleet included not just warships but also hospital ships to care for rescued prisoners, transport vessels to carry them home, and support ships loaded with supplies. The operation would need to function perfectly across dozens of star systems simultaneously. Commander Yu Jin ran the communication center that would coordinate all fleet movements. During the attack, every ship would need to know exactly when to strike and which targets to hit. The timing had to be perfect, or the aliens might escape or kill their prisoners. New weapons had been developed specifically for this mission. Human plasma cannons could cut through alien armor like paper. Guided missiles could track targets through hyperspace, and kinetic projectiles could destroy space stations with devastating efficiency. The ships also carried non-lethal weapons designed to disable alien guards without harming human prisoners. Stun fields could knock out entire rooms of aliens while leaving humans conscious. Special gases could make aliens sleep while humans remained awake. Admiral Jae-sung reviewed the final battle plans one more time. 17 different star systems would be hit simultaneously. Each attack force knew exactly what to do and when to do it. The coordination required was almost impossible, but they had rehearsed it hundreds of times. Intelligence reports showed that several thousand humans were being held in various locations. Some were working as laborers in mines or factories. Others were kept as servants or pets in alien homes. The most valuable ones were held in special collections. The admiral felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Every human life was precious, and this operation would determine whether thousands of people would live or die. He had to trust that his officers and crews were ready for what was coming. Captain So-hyun received her final orders while still hidden near Krylon Station. Her ship would be part of the first wave hitting the station where everything had started. She thought about the young boy she had seen being sold and hoped he was still alive. The preparation phase also included diplomatic planning. After the military strikes, human ambassadors would present evidence of the slave trade to the galactic community. The aliens would need to understand that this was justice, not unprovoked aggression. Supply lines were established to support the operation over many months. Human colonies provided food, water, medical supplies, and ammunition. The entire human sphere was mobilized to support their people trapped in alien space. Training simulations ran continuously as crews practiced their parts of the operation. Every possible scenario was considered, including what to do if aliens tried to kill prisoners rather than let them be rescued. The planning was incredibly detailed. New communication codes were developed so human ships could coordinate during battle without aliens understanding their messages. The codes were based on old Earth languages and cultural references that aliens would never recognize. Admiral Jae-sung knew that once this operation began, there would be no going back. Humanity would reveal its true military strength to the galaxy and make permanent enemies of the slave-trading species. But the choice was clear. The final briefings were held across the entire fleet. Commanders explained the mission to their crews and emphasized that they were not just fighting for military objectives. They were fighting to bring their people home and to ensure this never happened again as the countdown began. Captain So-hyun looked out at the stars and thought about all the human families that had been torn apart by the slave trade. Soon those families would be reunited, and the aliens would learn that humanity was not a species to be trifled with. The time for hiding was over. Humanity was about to announce itself to the galaxy in the strongest possible terms, and the universe would never be the same again. At exactly 0300 hours Galactic Standard Time across 17 different star systems, human warships appeared from hyperspace like ghosts materializing from the darkness. Their weapons were already charging as they dropped their stealth fields and revealed themselves to startled alien defenders. Captain So-hyun stood on the bridge of the Vengeance as her ship emerged from hiding near Krylon Station. Around her were 6 other human warships, all armed with the most advanced weapons Earth could build. The alien patrol ships nearby had no time to react. The Vorthak defense fleet tried to scramble their fighters, but human plasma cannons reached out across the void and tore their ships apart in seconds. The alien vessels exploded, in brilliant flashes of light, their crews never understanding what had hit them. On the station itself, alarms began screaming as the aliens realized they were under attack. But the humans had studied the station's layout for months and knew exactly where to strike. Precise missile strikes knocked out the main power grid and communication systems. Captain Dong-woo led his special forces teams through the airlocks and into the station's corridors. The aliens had never faced human soldiers in combat before and were completely unprepared for the fury of warriors fighting to rescue their own people. The bug-like Vorthak guards tried to use their stun weapons, but human armor deflected the energy beams. Human soldiers moved through the passages like lightning, their weapons cutting down any alien that tried to stop them. In the slave markets, chaos erupted as the lights went out, and explosions shook the structure. Alien buyers and sellers ran in panic, abandoning their business as human commandos smashed through the security doors. Taemin was in Lord Kethrak's private collection when the attack began. The crystal alien was showing off its human pets to some visitors when the entire station shuddered from weapons fire. The aliens made terrified sounds as emergency lights flashed. Red human soldiers in black armor burst through the door, their weapons drawn but pointed at the aliens, not the prisoners. One of them spoke in perfect Korean, telling the humans they were safe and rescue had arrived. The boy could not believe what he was seeing. After so many months of being treated like an animal, he was hearing his own language spoken by people who had come to save him. Tears ran down his face as the soldiers cut through his cage. Lord Kethrak tried to object, claiming that the humans were its legal property. But Captain Dong-woo simply looked at the crystal creature and told it in cold words that slavery was now illegal, and the penalty for slavers was death. The alien made bubbling sounds of fear as it realized these humans were not the primitive creatures it had thought they were. These were trained soldiers with advanced weapons who showed no mercy to those who had harmed their people. Across the station, similar scenes played out, as human teams found cage after cage of prisoners. Many of the rescued humans were in poor condition after months or years of captivity, but they were alive and they were finally free. The rescue operation took less than 4 hours to complete. Every human prisoner on Krylon Station was found and evacuated to the waiting rescue ships. The aliens who had run the slave markets were either dead or fleeing in terror, but Krylon Station was just one of 17 targets being hit simultaneously. Across the galaxy, human fleets were striking slave markets, mining operations, private collections, and transport ships. Any facility that held human prisoners was marked for destruction. At the mining world of Kepler Prime, Admiral Park Jin-ho commanded a battle fleet of 20 warships. The alien mining corporation had used human slaves for dangerous work in the radioactive core of the planet, thinking no one would ever come for them. The corporate defense fleet was destroyed in minutes as human ships demonstrated weapons technology that the aliens had never imagined. Kinetic projectiles traveling at near light speed turned alien cruisers into expanding clouds of debris. On the pleasure world of Vega 7, where wealthy aliens kept human servants as exotic pets, Captain Lee Min-jung led Marine forces in house-to-house searches. Every human servant was freed while their alien owners were arrested or eliminated. The coordination of the attacks was perfect. Human ships struck at exactly the same time across dozens of worlds, preventing any aliens from warning each other or organizing a defense. The element of surprise was complete. News of the attack spread through alien communication networks like wildfire. Species that had never paid attention to humans suddenly realized they were dealing with a military force of unexpected sophistication and power. The Dominion fleet tried to respond by sending their main battle group to intercept human forces, but Admiral J. Sung was waiting for them with the full strength of Earth's home defense fleet. The battle was swift and decisive. Dominion ships that had ruled their sector of space for centuries were outgunned and outmaneuvered by human vessels that seemed to predict their every move. The alien admirals watched in horror as their proud fleet was systematically destroyed. Within 24 hours of the first attack, every known human slave had been freed and was on their way home. The alien slave trade that had operated with impunity for years was completely shattered in a single coordinated strike. The rescued humans included farmers, miners, colonists, and children who had been taken from their families. Many were weak and traumatized, but they were alive, and they were going home. The joy of reunion mixed with anger at what had been done to them. Taemin found himself aboard a human hospital ship, where doctors and nurses worked to help all the rescued prisoners. He was examined, cleaned up, and given real human food for the first time in months. But best of all, he was told that his family had also been found. His parents, Jin-ho and Mi-young, had been rescued from a labor camp on another world, while his sister, Nari, had been found working as a servant in an alien household. The family would be reunited soon aboard one of the transport ships heading back to human space. The boy who had stood defiant on the auction block was now a symbol of human resistance. His image from the auction recordings had been broadcast throughout the galaxy, showing aliens everywhere that humans would never accept being treated as property. As the rescue fleets headed home, they left behind a clear message written in the wreckage of alien ships and the ruins of slave markets. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy, and the universe would never be the same. Within 3 days of the coordinated attacks, alien governments across the galaxy were in complete panic. The species that they had dismissed as primitive newcomers had just demonstrated military capabilities that surpassed their own by decades. Emergency sessions were called in the Galactic Council chambers as representatives from hundreds of worlds tried to understand what had happened. The Dominion fleet was in ruins. The Vorthak hegemony was begging for peace and slave markets throughout. The galaxy had gone silent. Admiral J. Sung arrived at the council chambers aboard the flagship Retribution, surrounded by an escort of human warships that made even the most powerful alien vessels look small and outdated. He wore his dress uniform, with medals from campaigns the aliens had never heard of. The council chamber fell completely silent as the human admiral walked to the speaker's podium. His footsteps echoed in the vast hall, while hundreds of alien eyes watched his every move. Many of the delegates were seeing a human for the first time, behind Admiral J. Sung. Holographic displays showed the smoking ruins of destroyed slave markets, the wreckage of alien fleets, and most importantly, the faces of thousands of rescued human prisoners. The evidence of what had been done was overwhelming. The admiral began his speech in a calm voice that somehow carried to every corner of the chamber. He spoke about the basic rights of all intelligent species, about the evil of slavery, and about justice for crimes against humanity. When he announced humanity's demands, the alien delegates listened in shocked silence. Every human slave was to be freed immediately. Massive payments were to be made to families of victims, and the practice of enslaving any intelligent species was to be banned forever. The Crethian ambassador, a creature that looked like a walking tree, tried to object. He pointed out that slavery had been part of galactic civilization for thousands of years, and that humans had no right to change ancient traditions. Admiral J. Sung simply smiled and gestured to the holographic displays showing destroyed alien military bases. He asked the ambassador if he would like to discuss the matter with the human fleet that was currently orbiting the Crethian homeworld. The threat was clear and unmistakable. Humanity had demonstrated that it possessed both the military power and the will to enforce its demands. Any species that continued the slave trade would face the same fate as the Dominion fleet. One by one, the alien governments agreed to humanity's terms. They promised to free any remaining slaves, to pay compensation to victims' families, and to pass laws making slavery illegal throughout their territories. The Galactic Council voted unanimously to accept the new anti-slavery laws, with the human fleet weapons trained on their homeworlds. No one was willing to argue. The age of slavery in this part of the galaxy had ended in a single week. Taemin, watched the proceedings from the observation deck of the transport ship taking him home to Earth. Around him were hundreds of other rescued humans, including his parents and sister, who had been found safe on other worlds. The boy who had once been sold like property now represented something much larger than himself. He was a symbol of human determination, and a reminder that no force in the universe could break the bonds that held humanity together. His father Jin-ho held him close while his mother Mi-young wept with joy at having her family together again. His sister Nari, who had grown thin during her captivity, slowly began to smile as she realized they were really going home. The rescued humans shared their stories of captivity and survival. Some had been forced to work in mines or factories. Others had been kept as servants or pets. But all of them had held on to hope that someday their people would come for them. Captain So-hyun visited the observation deck and spoke with some of the rescued prisoners. She told them about the long search to find them and about the preparations for the rescue operation. Every human who had been taken was important to the mission. The transport ships were filled with former slaves, heading home to Earth and the human colonies. Many would need medical treatment and counseling to recover from their experiences. But they were alive, and they were free. News of the rescue operation spread throughout human space like wildfire. Families who had given up hope of ever seeing their loved ones again prepared joyful reunions. The return of the slaves became a celebration of human unity and strength. On Earth, crowds gathered at the spaceports to welcome home the rescued prisoners. Tae-min and his family were among the first to disembark, stepping onto solid ground under Earth's blue sky for the first time in over a year. The boy looked up at the sun and breathed the fresh air of his species' homeworld. He thought about how different things were from that terrible day when the aliens had attacked his colony. The galaxy now knew that humans were not to be trifled with. Admiral Jae-sung returned to Earth as a hero, but he knew the real heroes were the thousands of people who had survived captivity and never lost hope. They had endured unimaginable hardships while waiting for rescue that many thought would never come. The rescued slaves were given new homes and jobs while their children like Tae-min were enrolled in schools, where they could heal from their trauma and build new lives. The human government made sure that every survivor received the best possible care. But the most important result of the rescue operation was the message it sent to the galaxy. Humanity had announced itself as a major power that would protect its people no matter the cost. Any alien species that threatened humans would face swift and overwhelming retaliation. The slave trade that had existed for millennia was broken in a single, coordinated strike. The aliens, who had grown wealthy selling intelligent beings as property, learned that some species would not tolerate such treatment of their people. Years later, when Tae-min had grown into a young man, he would join the Earth Defense Force and help patrol the galaxy to make sure slavery never returned. His experience as a child had taught him that freedom must be defended by those strong enough to fight for it. The galaxy was now a different place where the rights of intelligent beings were protected by human ships and human resolve. The species that had once been considered primitive newcomers were now recognized as the dominant military power in their region of space. And in the quiet moments when he looked up at the stars, Tae-min would remember standing on that auction platform and refusing to show fear. He had represented all of humanity in that moment, and humanity had not let him down. The boy who had been sold as property had become a symbol of freedom, and the species that had come to rescue him had changed the galaxy forever.